No problem. So we have all the participants here, and we'll commence the meeting. I'd like to call opening of the meeting at 3:04. Before we do the agenda, maybe we'd like to welcome our new chief financial officer for the municipality. I don't know, Liam, if you want to do introductions or.
Sure, I would be happy to. Yeah. So, everybody, I'd like to introduce Sheila McCutcheon. Sorry, not Sheila Malcolmson, who's the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, I believe. But better yet, we have Sheila McCutcheon, who is a well-experienced local government senior official from various communities in the province, and has experience as being the chief financial officer, as well as being a chief administration officer, as well as being a corporate officer and other positions too. So we're super excited to have Sheila on board, who brings a not just a wide breadth of experience, but deep knowledge as well. So really glad to have Sheila on board and with us here today. And so Sheila, or perhaps as we could do a quick round from the committee. If I think Sheila's met some of, if not most of you, but maybe there's one or two of you that Sheila has not met yet.
Okay.
Welcome, Sheila. I'm Joyce Ganong. Really pleased to have you on board and look forward to working with you. I guess if I were to say any perspective that I bring to the board is probably one of community.
That's great. Thanks, Joyce.
Yeah. Has anybody else in the committee not met Sheila at this point or talked to her?
I haven't met Sheila. Sheila,
Okay.
I'm John O'Donnell. I live on the other side of the island in Bowen Bay, and I'm also on the local advisory committee for the water board. So you'll be getting up to getting involved with that. I hope in December we'll probably have a meeting with various stats, etc. I'm a retired now, but I'm an architect, but I've worked in the development industry in the Lower Mangland in the multifamily industry since I closed my architectural office in '87 and joined Polygon, and then worked for a number of multifamily developers ever since.
Great.
Nice to meet you, John.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
And Sheila, we've exchanged had some good conversation, and I look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Fred.
Good. Okay, I think if the other individuals have met, we'll move on. We'll move on and look at the approval of the agenda, which I've already messed up 1.1 because we've already done that. So we'll now move on to 1.2, introduction of late items. Do we have any items that the committee would like to see added to the agenda?
I do.
Joyce?
I don't, we usually have it and I don't see it. And it's follow-up from the meetings or action items from the minutes, the last minutes.
Oh, I don't know if there were any action items.
Well, there was one.
Oh,
And
okay. I wonder if we could go from the minutes then.
yep, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Nope.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay.
Maybe after public comments then, Fred. Action
Okay.
items?
We'll look at that through the minutes then. So any other items to be added to the agenda or requested to be added? Hearing none, we have a recommendation that the Finance Advisory Committee approve the agenda and late items agenda, which is we have no items for the October 18th, 2021 meeting. Could I have somebody recommend?
I would second that.
Okay. So John will second. So I'd like to.
I'll move it.
Thanks, Joyce. Okay, we'll do that. We now will move on to point number 2, which is adoption of the minutes provided in your package. Minutes from the May 6, 2021 Financial Advisory Committee, and an opportunity to have any discussion or points of clarification or, as it relates to those minutes. Any comments or recommendations for revisions from the committee members? Okay.
Do you want me to comment now or?
Yeah, now's a good time. Sure.
Okay. Under new business of the minutes, What we asked was staff obtain confirmation from the province whether retroactive use of the funds is permitted. This is related to DCC parks acquisition and stuff. I don't think that we ever received a comment back as to whether it's okay for us to retroactively use the funds.
Yeah, I think that's correct. We haven't heard a response to that, but I think perhaps it's something that we were probably going to defer a discussion of the development cost charges in the DCC, those points, probably to a point when we felt that everybody was sort of in a ready position to have addressed that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. I think it's a good point to bring forward, though, as something that we're looking for a response from in due course.
But that
What was
doesn't mean we're not amending the minutes, correct? The minutes as circulated are fine, so I'll move the adoption of the minutes as circulated.
Okay, I had one comment on the minutes myself first, though. Okay, well, we can have a seconder, then we can a seconder for that, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Joyce. Okay, any questions? I do have one comment. I think under that particular category, it's suggested that the FAC recommendations go directly to council with communication that committee members are available for discussion and elaboration. I didn't believe that that comment was specific to that particular item, but as a general comment going forward.
Where are you?
Suggesting that the committee may be available to provide, to address the council directly with regards to its recommendations.
Fred, whereabouts are you in the minutes, please?
Okay, I'm right under new business, development cost charges bylaw. We were just under the next line that Joyce had talked
The
about.
second bullet under.
Yeah, the second bullet.
Okay.
And I understood that to be a general comment about recommendations coming from the committee rather than
Let's take that
specific to that bylaw.
right?
Okay, delete
Leave
it.
it there, but put it as a separate paragraph at the end of that section, maybe. So generally the commit, another word generally in front of it.
I
Okay.
kind of thought it belonged in the terms of reference comments, actually,
That's a good one, yeah.
Okay, maybe we
Okay,
can include
Taking
that.
it out of there and putting it down to terms of.
That's
I got a question on that, though. It sort of implies that as individuals, we can show up and speak on behalf of the committee. Whereas in
No.
fact, I believe we cannot do that. We must be approved to speak on certain matters by the committee ahead of time. So I think
Yes,
that's
that would be
actually
the
a
intent.
confusing sentence.
Okay, do you have a proposed wording for that then?
I would take it out. I mean, I don't think, certainly our recommendations go directly to council. I think that's been there all along. There's no doubt about that. And then if we, sorry, with that committee members are available for discussion on and elaboration, why don't we say that the committee will select a member or members to be available for discussion and elaboration if necessary.
We're talking about minutes of a statement that was said, and I don't remember that kind of discussion.
No.
Yeah, I know, but I don't remember us discussing that, we were able to go and speak as individuals, but represent the
Yeah,
committee.
I don't think it was intended that we would speak as individuals. We would, the intent was that it would be committee representation in the discussion.
So maybe,
Not a casual thing. It was really, there may be opportunities or appropriate
Yeah.
times when the committee should address its position directly with council.
so maybe you just say with communication that when appropriate, the committee would be pleased to meet with council.
Yeah. Joyce, I recall you were involved with that discussion. How do you feel about that?
I think that it needs to be referenced back to the terms of reference, and we haven't finished doing that yet. But I don't think it belongs in that particular.
I've moved it down to
Section
terms of
O.
reference.
So let's just do that, put it back into that point for further discussion.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's
Sorry, what's
under
happening?
the terms of reference right now.
we'll put it in the section under the terms of reference,
Okay,
and we'll say that's for further discussion by the committee.
Yeah.
On that particular point, which we can address in due course as we actually go forward on that.
So what is the correction going to say in the minutes now? Under terms of reference, we're going to have a bullet, and the bullet is going to say exactly what?
It was as a point of discussion, and it was a point of discussion, it was suggested that that FAC recommendations go directly to council with communication that members representing the committee may be available for discussion and elaboration, but that's going to be clarified in the terms of reference when we go forward.
Okay, so I want to know from Steph exactly what wording she's going to put in the minutes.
okay, just a sec.
That was awfully long-winded.
Just a sec.
I thought I sounded pretty good, Allison.
GOR discussions are completed. Okay, so it'll say it was suggested that FAC recommendations go directly to council with communication that the committee may be available for discussion and elaboration, but this will be clarified when terms of reference discussions are complete.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good with that. Any
And that's
other
moved down to that other
revisions?
section.
Okay, I think we're fine. So we
so
had a
I'll
mover
put
and
my
seconder.
motion is as amended now, that they approve the minutes as amended.
Yeah, we will be, yes. We'll add as amended. So, okay, if we've had a movers and seconders, we'll continue with those individuals, and all in favor? Thank you. We'll now move on. Okay, public comments? Nothing?
Public.
Thank you. Updates, point 4, 4.1, capital project update, verbal. Liam, I understand you will be providing that reporting.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And so it's interesting to note that the list of capital projects is growing that I report out on. So that is indicative of the amount of work that the municipality is undertaking, and this is a bit tangential, but it's also indicative of the load and the capacity of the organization too. So nonetheless, I'll give you brief updates on each, and don't hesitate to ask for clarification or additional information as we go. So the first one is the community center. You may have heard through channels that we're in the tender process. So we had the open call for tenders. We received 3 bids, and we have identified the low bidder and all the bids as being compliant, and the low bidder we've continued to engage on an effort to identify cost savings. The lowest bid came in at about 14.8 million, which exceeds, when we factor in expenditures to date and our need for having contingency available during construction, that bid exceeds the affordability cap by about $4.5 million. And so we're working with that constructor, with that bidder, to identify cost savings in the project in and of itself. And we're also working on expanding our donation campaign to secure additional funds from community donors. And we're also looking to additional funding opportunities from alternative funding programs. And we've identified the Canadian Heritage funding program as a possible opportunity to secure more funds that wouldn't conflict with the existing stacking rules with the federal government or the provincial government funding. And then lastly, we're also looking at what internal sources of funds we can apply to the project to help close that gap. $4.5 million is a big gap, but I do believe that it's achievable, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to move forward to council. Well, first we will go to the steering committee for the project with a proposal, and then that committee would advance a recommendation to council to either engage and sign a contract with the vendor, or to look to alternatives. We're hopeful to bring that into council this calendar year before the winter break, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to have a high degree of confidence that we can close that gap with the various methods that we're pursuing. And that wouldn't result in any significant design changes or performance outcomes of the facility. So that's where we are with that project. The fire hall is
I just had a
definitely.
quick question, Liam, on
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, go
What's
ahead.
the time frame, do you think, on that then?
We hope to come to council this calendar year, so before the end of December, with a decision which would be a no-go decision in terms of executing the contract. And if we have sufficient confidence and council makes a decision to sign the contract, then we would be looking to begin the project next year. They have identified that the construction build would take about 18 months. The likelihood of getting to the actual construction start is probably looking late summer or fall of next year if we had a green light. There's still a fair bit of permitting that has to be sorted out and that kind of stuff before we would get to a site preparation plan. And so realistically, we could have the facility, potentially up and running by the end of 2023, perhaps the beginning of 2024. The fire hall, as you probably have noticed, is well underway, and it's going up like Lego blocks, so to speak, and it's pretty exciting. And it took quite a while to get out of the ground, but now it's going quite quickly, and we are told that it is on schedule to be meeting substantial completion by mid-spring, around March or April of 2022. But in reality, to commissioning, like where we actually are in the building, is probably likely more like June or July, because we have to, outfit the building with furniture and all of that good stuff, and make sure that all of the systems are operational, and move any of the equipment or other types of pieces from the existing fire hall number 1 to this fire hall. Any questions on that project? Oh, and you may see as you drive past the existing fire hall that there is a fancy new generator sitting on the parking lot that's waiting to be moved to the new fire hall. So that's exciting that we've got that backup generator already there. The Cove Bay Drinking Water Treatment Plant project is an ongoing concern for myself and many others in the community. It is a bit of a frustration, I'll be honest, because we were set to commission the project in May, and it's been a series of challenges working with the, I guess it's mostly the biggest challenge has been with the primary technology provider, Purifics, which is providing the treatment technology. We did have a challenge with our own owners supplied equipment, which was a heating unit for the treatment technology, which failed, and we have since had that replaced. But then we ran into additional challenges with some piping, and then further challenges with the actual filters themselves and some electronics that govern the entire system. we continue to go back and forth between our design consultants and the technology provider on trying to work towards a solution. But as you all know, we're well past the stage that we should have had this plant up and running. And unfortunately, there's no clear timeline as to when we will actually get the system fully operational. I don't have any doubt that we will get the system operational, but I'm just not clear in terms of when that might be. So we continue to troubleshoot and work through the various problems that we've encountered. Part of what we're doing going forward is securing key equipment components for the facility to have them on site, so that if should they fail or not operate correctly, that we have them handy and not having to wait for supply chain challenges to get them here to Bowen. So there was a good question raised by a member of council when we were updating council, and that was about like, well, what if we just can't get the new treatment technology to work? We don't have to revert back to the old system. The new system can deliver water in the same treatment capacity as the old system, where we would just be chlorinating the water. And so we have that ability, but obviously we want to use the filters. That's the intent. So any questions about that project? Okay. Next is our composting, on-island composting project, and we remain extremely positive and hopeful on that project that we would be able to announce some positive news someday soon. We're hopeful, and that project would be positioned in behind the existing recycling center on the Bird property, and that would be a really welcome project to the island. Moving on to the multi-use path.
Lee, I'm back to composting.
Yep.
We got a grant, didn't we?
I'm not so sure about that. But,
oh, I'm sorry. I thought I'd read something in a provincial news release.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'll go back and look.
Yeah. Sorry about that, folks. I'll confirm with Councillor Morris. The multi-use path project, we're close to finalizing the tender on what I would call phase 2 and 3. So the initial phase of the project was to bring the multi-use path from the ferry up to Artisan Square. We broke it into 3 smaller phases, and we completed that first phase, which was from Mount Gardner Road to Artisan Square earlier in the year. And phase 2 and 3 was from Cardina Road up to the school. And we have secured funding for that portion of the project. And in order to engage and start that project in earnest, we needed to secure land from Metro Parks along Trunk Road, along the north side of Trunk Road, from the library lot up to the corner of the 4 corners there. But also there's that one privately held lot on the corner by the Bendali family and Mike Lightbody. And we're in negotiations with them to also secure a strip of land, and they're very supportive of that as well. So we have a license agreement with Metro Parks to use that strip of land, and we're close to achieving the same with the Bendali group. And so that will be really exciting, because then we'll be able to complete that whole strip from effectively the ferry all the way to Artisan Square. And additionally, we're undertaking works for high-level costing for the remainder of the multi-use path, which would go all the way to Bowen Bay Road at the other end of the island. and that will help us with securing additional funds for other phases as programs open up and calls for application are accepted.
Any question? Just add a question on that one if I could. You said that funding's okay under for parts 2 and 3. Is that all subject to funding that's already been allocated at this point then?
Yep.
So there were no additional funds beyond what had been addressed in the first presentation then?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there was some good cost savings in that first phase as well that helped ensure that we're operating within the already approved envelopes.
It's the first time I've ever seen sprayed grass work.
Yeah, it worked really well. Yeah. And it's all local or native to BC species too of grass, which was important for Bowen. And then you may have noticed that there's been construction in and around the library, and that is a sewer connection project connecting the library to the sewer system. And the most challenging aspect of that project has been completed successfully, which was a tunnel boring underneath Trunk Road to connect instead of doing a classic cut and cover. And so that project is moving along well. And then we added to the list too Islan Paving. And so apologies to anyone who was negatively impacted by the ferry disruptions of last week with all the paving trucks coming on the island. And we have made efforts to improve our communications to the community on that front, as well as trying to work with BC Ferries to coordinate better. So but the reality is that it's an annual occurrence that we're going to have to live with in terms of improving our roads. And so this tranche of paving is looking at doing that new Grafton Road for the Grafton Lakelands development, looking at paving the bird recycling area where you come in there, and doing Taylor Road once the rock scaling work has completed, and some other improvements to on the list, as well as the corner of Killarney. It's on Mount Gardner Road, right by Killarney Lake, the sort of primary parking lot right by the lake there. That really nasty bit of pavement is there. Ultimately, we will continue to try to figure out what the best window of opportunity is for paving on the island, but it seems like the fall is actually a lower impact period. It's either the fall or the spring, and it's challenging because it's weather dependent, but we figure the summer is not a welcome time to be doing that type of work. So any questions on that? Okay, that's my capital project update.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll now move on to point 4.2, which is a financial update. And Sheila, I believe you're going to provide a verbal report. No, you'll have to get. We can't hear you.
You're muted.
Sorry, there we
Sorry,
go.
Sheila, I muted everybody. There was some feedback.
Okay, we all do this.
There we go. Okay, just make sure I'm there. Can everyone hear me? Oh gosh. Can everyone hear me? Okay, sorry about that. Just wanted to say that the overall financial and cash flow position of the municipality is good. The departments are working on their budgets and capital budgets for 2022 and the 5-year financial plan 2023 to 2026. I just want to let everyone know that the finance department, we are behind and in the process of catching up. We had significant two key finance position turnover since May. So that of course slows things down a bit. And then of course, with the outgoing CFO and financial accountant, they have been working on related bargaining with the Public Works collective agreement. So we're working towards that catch up, and it's going along quite well. So hoping that there's another finance advisory committee meeting in November where we can provide financial results or some financial reporting at the end of the third quarter, the end of September, for the finance advisory committee. And that's pretty much.
Thank you. We'll make a note of that when we address our upcoming meetings. Any questions for Sheila? Comments? Thank you. We'll move on now to point 4.3, which is asset management update. And that's also a report from Sheila. It's been provided in your package. So if you'd like to provide your comments, please, Sheila.
So I just wanted to provide a bit of a scan as to a little bit in a very brief report as to what activity has occurred with asset management over the last 5-6 years. And it looks like there has been some initiative and progress made. However, it has been interrupted at different times for various reasons. So not that we want to dwell on that, but just how we can begin to move forward with asset management planning for the municipality and with a realistic timeline. So there was a draft asset management policy that has not gone to council. I'm not too sure if it's gone to this committee or not yet, but we'll probably start there and review that and hopefully be able to bring that for review somewhere within the first half of 2020. And just wanted to recommend that we actually form an internal asset management working group to begin so that we have a cross section of the municipality staff to work on asset management, and then begin to formulate and develop a plan for how we're going to achieve this and move it forward. And I believe there was some work done towards possibly working with Asset Finder as a software for the municipality. However, that was determined that it was not compatible with other internal software, GIS, and it is quite an expensive. It is a very expensive software. I've demoed it over the years. So anyways, just wanted to give you an update that, this will, although there's been no spending in 2021, that we will plan on, making some progress in 2022, and that line item will be within various departments' 2022 operating budget.
Questions?
Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Michael? Go ahead, Michael.
Sheila, so
Sorry,
Sheila,
Michael, then Allison.
Sheila, this coming year then looks it would be very similar to last year, right? In terms of timing, am I right?
For the asset management?
No, for the budgeting.
Well, we're on asset management, Michael.
Yes, I realize that, but trying to interlink the two here. So I'm sorry, you've lost me on one point here. For the asset management, I'm not quite sure where we're actually leading to, where this actually is standing right now. Are we saying we are going to purchase the system or we're not? Because that, in terms of the budget, this is going to be relevant. I mean, we've been talking about this for so long. I'm trying to get a sort of a line in the sand as to where we are right now.
So where we are right now, I was in a high level summary is we need to do a reset of what has work that has happened to date. It's it doesn't seem to be relevant anymore, other than we have a draft asset management policy that needs to be reviewed and brought back to council. So we really need to reset what we've been doing with asset management and maybe start again, because there's been kind of a start and stop process to date without a lot of substantial outcomes. So that's why my recommendation is that we form an internal working group so that we can begin to move asset management ahead in a very, with a defined plan. And first of all, defining the policy and getting that policy in place, because out of the policy becomes our guidelines for working, moving forward.
Yeah, okay. No, thank you, Sheila. So therefore, when we get to the budget bit, sorry, I'm putting it the wrong way around. We need to have something that reflects enough muscle to actually get this plan moving. Yes,
that's right. So there has been no current spending in 2021 related to asset management for any of the budget that was allocated for that, because there's just been no activity. And but 2022, we heard today from our engineer, unless we get this moving forward, it's going to compromise our future success with grant applications. And that's, for large infrastructure grants. So it's something that we need to make a priority, and getting that policy in place is the first step.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Allison?
I just wanted to clarify the reference to the software. We bought software years ago, as I recall. Is that the software you're referring to? Or are you wanting, and so you want to buy something else,
I personally, I think I would to our CAO.
Yeah, I'm happy to step in here. And so, Allison, you're correct. We purchased Asset Finder, and we had a consultant take on a bunch of work to populate that system with our data. And that finalized right around when I arrived in 2020. And when I participated in a workshop with that consultant, it was clear that the data that was populated in the system wasn't really lining up well with our existing geographical information system and our other data sets. And staff were having a difficult time just trying to make that software system work for our needs. And so what we really need to do is what Sheila has been identifying is basically get all of the team back together to refocus on what really needs to be done. There's clear agreement that we need to take it at one step at a time, and we have agreed internally that we would continue to focus on culverts as the initial asset category to try to get a handle on the full asset management protocols, and then we can more easily roll out the protocol to all our asset classes. And that should be fairly straightforward, but the amount of time and energy it seems to require, or that software system seems to require, is something that we need to revisit to see is that really what we want to use, because that system may not actually be the best system for us. You don't actually have to have a fancy specific software system. You can use just Excel for asset management. And so we kind of want to go a little bit back to the basics here, and have a better understanding. At the same time, we have this draft policy statement, but it was never brought to council. And that draft policy statement, it can just be a sort of a guiding protocol or guiding statement for the organization. And it tells the province and others that asset management is a priority for Bowen Island municipality. And so we want to make sure that that policy statement comes forward to council.
So with regard to that policy statement, my recollection is that it was dropped on us at the very end of a long FAC meeting, and we've never discussed it as a finance advisory committee or gone through it line by line or any review of it in any way. So,
Well, we could easily bring it here before it comes to council.
Okay.
a major
Other committee
help.
members would nod on that point? Yes? No?
Would
I
that
think
be
everybody's in
November?
agreement that the committee would be prepared to do that, that review and
Would that be
discussion
the November meeting?
prior to presentation to council. So do you have a sense of when that would, are you looking to try to move that forward fairly quickly, Liam?
No,
The,
no, sorry, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead, Sheila.
Want me to respond? Yeah,
Yeah,
we-
just as it relates to the policy itself. I realize the work is going to be a whole other matter.
yeah, as it relates to the policy itself, I would say probably in the spring. Right now, we have a lot of other priorities that would be very difficult to pull a cross-section of the departments together to actually review that first before it did just go to council. We want to make sure that it is current.
So do you, from a timing perspective, which I think what Fred was getting at, we've got a November meeting and then we've got a spring meeting. Would it be better if we looked at it as a draft in the November meeting?
No, it would be better if we looked at it as a draft in the spring meeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
just, we
'cause
just
I
don't have the
think, well,
staffing resources right now.
Yeah, with the current schedule,
Okay.
even the budget discussions that were proposed are not going to be meeting the new timetable that's come forward, which is December, January period. And so the November 25th meeting, much of the information or discussion that would be normally planned for that session that information is not going to be available. So it may provide an option for at least another meeting, but realistically, we're going to have a separate meeting sometime, I suspect, either sometime in mid-December or sometime in early January as it relates to the budget. And that, so following November 25th, that would probably be the next time frame that the committee would probably get together, as I understand it. So, John?
Just to follow up that in Michael's point, if it looks like from the report here, there was a line item in last year's budget for the asset management system, and I guess it has not been spent. Will we need then a similar line item in next year's budget?
We will evaluate that as we're going through the budget process, and when we meet with the Finance Advisory Committee, probably in January, we'll be able to give you a better idea then as to what that amount will be for 2022. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
And just for a point of clarification too, it's definitely important to have budget allocated to asset management, but more importantly, it's the staff resourcing, because you can't hire a consultant to do it for you. I mean, they can do some of that work, but really it's about the staff have to take it on and it has to become part of their daily routine.
I appreciate it. I think we had some discussion at the committee level around those points earlier in this year, or in the last budget period as well.
Yep.
Joyce?
Well, that's a nice segue or conclusion or something. I wanted to talk about it under capital projects. Then I thought, well, no, it could be asset management. And then I thought, no, it could be budget. But I'm the one that keeps on saying, do we have the staff to manage all of these huge projects, including asset management? And I'm really hoping that the budget that you bring forward is going to talk about the human resources required to do the job. And quite frankly, I'm a little concerned that we keep on training people to do asset management and then they get recruited to other places. So that's the other side of it that worries me. So I know this is crossing over into the Human Resources Advisory Committee function, but it seems to me it's an issue that we have to pay attention to as a finance committee, because without the right people, we cannot manage all of these projects and actually accomplish what we need to do. That's my spiel.
Good, thank you.
Mm.
Liam?
Just responding to Joyce's comment. I don't know that we've actually trained a whole lot of people on asset management. So that's, it's a really good question. Like we did have the consultant hire to work on our behalf. And our previous CFO was really keen on asset management and understood asset management, just like, and as is Sheila. But our staff, you know, we never got down to the sort of daily operations level where we need to get to. And but your point is really well taken, and it's a growing concern of mine that as especially our treatment facilities become more complex, those require certified training for certified operators, and that becomes a real challenge for small communities. That once you get those certifications, they become desirable for other communities. So it's something that we're keenly aware of.
Here's hoping they live on Bowen and they like living on Bowen and they don't want to commute off the island.
Yeah, shut the ferry down. Anyway, okay, well, thank you. Any other questions? There's a recommendation here. This is for the report dated October 12th that the Finance Advisory Committee received the Asset Management Update Report, October 12th, 2021, report for information. Mover, please.
Yes, very good.
Michael, thank you. Seconder?
I would second.
John? Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. We'll now move on to new business, point 5, which is the 5.1, which is the 2022 budget schedule that you've prepared. And I'll ask you to provide your comments. It's been provided in the package for everybody to review and provides a fairly wholesome level of information as to the timing of and the steps that are required in the process going forward for this upcoming year. So Sheila, please.
Yeah, so as we all know, the community charter section 165 requires that municipalities develop a financial plan that is adopted by bylaw. So the schedule works towards the adopting of those bylaws in April at 2 regular council meetings in 2022. And to start, of course, we have the staff budget development period, which we're working towards and working on at the moment. And then from there, we'll move into local advisory committee and finance advisory committee meetings. So we've allocated a couple months for that because we also have the Christmas break during that time and various people away on holidays. And then from there, we move on to the council budget workshop, a committee of the whole. We've allocated 2 meetings for that this year, just in case we need to go back to council again after the first committee of the whole. And then actually after the very first committee of the whole for the council budget workshop, we'll start the public consultation period February 11th, 2022 to March 9th. And during that period, we'll have a public virtual open house like last year on March 3rd. And from there, we'll be able to create consolidated 2022 to 2026 5-year financial plan bylaw and 2022 property tax rate bylaw to go to council April 11th for first 3 readings and then April 25th for adoption. So this is a timeline that provides us with some flexibility. We have other, day-to-day work to be also part of our workload, and being a first year, just for myself, just wanting to give adequate time to ensure I'm providing all this report and information that the advisory committees and council will need. So really have nothing more to add other than just asking that the Finance Advisory Committee recommend that council approve the 22 budget schedule as presented.
Any questions or comments? Allison?
I don't recall us ever approving the schedule at council before. The terms of reference for the finance committee require us to provide oversight to the development of the financial plan process. So it seems to me we've always just approved the budget schedule at the finance committee, and council's just been informed.
I don't know.
Our CAO, did you want to?
I like
don't.
this way.
Yeah, I don't recall bringing the council or bringing the budget schedule and timeline to council last year. And so, but it seems like good practice to bring it to the Finance Advisory Committee in advance and taking it to council.
Yes, echo that, Liam, and I think that it is really important, because I think it was Joyce Ganong who made the point that we've always looked at the budget, obviously in the dollar and cents, and it's always pertained very much to a lot of the physical aspects of our capital project. But I think this year, especially with some of the other events going on, we'll be looking at the suitability, the sufficiency of the staffing situation along with this coming year's financial budget. I'd rather hoped it was all going to be earlier, because by the time we get it approved, it's going to be April. And I know originally, and this goes back to the comment I'd made, we had discussed about bringing this whole process earlier. And I know there's going to be recommendations just from the conversations that Maureen and I have been having on committees, that this subject is coming up, that by the time we get the budget approved, we're coming close into summer. Well, we won't be able to avoid it this year. And with Sheila just being on board, I see no choice. But I think putting this schedule in front of council, so that all councillors are aware that this is the way it's going to run. And I can't add any further to that, but I think it will be somewhat different in our approach. That it is great to create a budget. Budget creates expectations, but that akin to these expectations, we actually giving the municipality, Liam, sufficient human resources to get the job done, because otherwise it's rather hollow.
Okay.
For myself, it's a best practice. I've always brought this as council, the budget timeline to council for approval. So I appreciate that. I know we're already talking about, moving ahead with the 2023 annual budget early in the spring, and beginning that process almost immediately following the approval of this budget. So yeah, appreciate those comments and are in full agreement.
Okay, thank you. Allison?
Well, I'm fine with the motion. I just wanted to say I didn't, history wise. But the other thing is just echoing what Michael has said. We didn't get much in the way of detailed information from each of the departments. I mean, I would like to see an actual business plan from each department as to what it is they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And one of those things has to be, do they have the staff time to do there's one thing to put it in the strategic plan, and the other thing is to be able to resource it with staff time. So how they're going to adjust the strategic plan with their budget, how they're going to do their general day-to-day operations, what their plans are for building assets, trails and whatever, parks committee. So a proper presentation from each committee, not just this is what we do, but this is what our plans are for this year and going forward. Much like the province does with their business plans for each of the ministries. It can be fairly high level, but I think we need a business plan from each department. And the other thing I'd like to see in the budget is we've never had a summary page like we get in the financial statements, which says, here's the total budget for salaries, here's the total budget for office administration, here's the total budget, you know, the same as that note in the financial statements. And that's really come to bear this year with members of the public complaining about, well, you budgeted X for salaries, but there's no line in the budget that says, this is what we budgeted for salaries and benefits as the, you know, as an example, or this is what we budgeted for rent and this is what we budgeted for contractors.
Okay.
So just throwing my wish list out.
Okay, thank you for your comment. I'm not sure what may be appropriate in that particular regard, but the I think one of the things that to address on Allison's point specifically is that we would expect that the proposals within the budget would take the position that there are sufficient resources or identify what resources are required to move forward on those budget items for the year. I think that may be the way that's addressed rather than, I don't know, which is the appropriate approach. John, you've got a point?
Yeah, a couple. Just thinking of the local advisory committees, the water boards, of which, Sheila, we have quite a few. We're very fortunate in that to be quite rich with these various boards. And it appears we need to have our meeting in December as well in order to be in line with the budget process, which does put sort of a workload on staff in this crunch time. And also it's a difficult time for people to attend meetings in terms of general public meetings in December. And I guess I'm just wondering whether the local water boards, I know they appear as line items in our budgets, but in fact, they're spending money that's collected separately in a way from the general tax collections.
So last year, yeah, thanks for that comment, John. Last year, those local advisory committee meetings happened over the course of actually just 2 days. It looked like they were pretty back to back. So we're anticipating that
They weren't fun days.
2 or 3 days, yeah. And we're anticipating that those meetings will happen in January. There's work to be done yet in relationship to looking at the water rates for each of those water systems and making sure that we're bringing all of that information at one time back to those committees. So we're looking at more into January for those meetings.
But I guess my question was, they need to be linked to the main budget. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, they're absolutely linked to the main budget. Sorry.
Yeah, and then just in terms of a wish list, I would like to see maybe a separate line item for legal fees. We're getting some various legal suits coming along, and I think if the public were aware of what these things are costing, maybe it might help people think more about it.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any other comments or questions? I just had one point to address as it relates to the report. We had quite a bit of discussion this last year regarding the, it's called the Guiding Principles for Planning and Budgeting Decision-Making Policy, that talks about the budgeting cycle. And one of the elements, and I think we were indicated that we would be addressing that, or at least looking at it in due course. One of the issues that had come up last year was the fact that it related to as part of the cycle that I think it was identified in the cycle in the fall, council identifies its priorities for the next year. And we know the committee felt a little challenged. I understand there was a strategic planning session last year, and council had at least established some priorities that were not communicated to the committee. And I don't know whether council itself this year, as part of the sort of the prelude into the budgeting process, has in fact sat down and at least discussed what are priorities for the municipality in the upcoming year. And that was done prior to the crunching the numbers into the departments starting to develop their own programs. So I don't know where we would stand on that, or is it intent to do that?
So I'll take a crack at responding to that. So This year, the preferred schedule has just been completely, blown, so to speak. So we're readjusting accordingly. And where we're landing in terms of the preferred approach to that type of sequencing of important meetings is to have the staff, so each department lead, develop an operational budget and operational priorities early in the summer, starting as early as June. And then we would be bringing to a strategic planning of council that operational view of the next calendar year and beyond. So then council would be going into a strategic planning session, understanding, okay, here's what the organization from an operational point of view is looking at. And okay, knowing that, what additional strategic priorities needs to be added or addressed. And then that informs what will become the first draft budget. And that would also, Finance Advisory Committee would be a part of that process as well. And we would then get into would now be into the fall, where we would be September, October, looking to engaging with the public as well, to then be approaching council in November with the budget approval process, looking to secure final approval by December. That's really our desired sequencing and timelines. And that's what we're gonna try for next year. And so, like Sheila said, we'll be coming out of this budget process approval in April of 2022, and really just turning right around and starting to gear up for the 2023 and beyond. Recognizing that next year will also be a bit of a challenge because it's an election year, and you're going to be hard pressed to secure a budget with a brand new council right off the bat. So there's going to be a bit of a lag there as well. So does that get to your question, Fred?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think it's fine for what we're dealing with. I mean, that's from a practical point of view. Yeah, I can appreciate the position that we're in and then moving it forward. I mean, I think the point that came up last year too was that the committee didn't feel it was responsibility to sort of do a fine-tuning review of specific proposals. That was really those that came out of the council's interests as it relates to priorities, and we just set parameters what we thought were appropriate for the budgeting exercise overall. So we didn't want to drill down into, all the various smaller items and stuff like that. It just didn't really make sense for us from that point of view, because we're not involved in that stuff on a regular basis.
Yeah,
but that's fine. I think I'm fine with that. Everybody else okay?
I just had.
Yes.
So we didn't really I'm just looking back in my strategic planning binder, and we didn't do a strategic plan meeting until April of 2021. So it was basically after the fact of the budget. And I think the budget was done on the basis of the 2020 strategic plan would carry forward. I guess what I was getting at, and I think I totally agree with Liam, that staff needs to do an operational plan, but sometimes the operations are one thing, and then council comes along and they have all sorts of other things they want to see happen. And so somewhere somebody's got to decide, okay, we've got to do A, B, C, and D because they're operations, keeping our assets in good state of repair, et cetera. Now, how much time have we got and how can we address these other things? And they've got to be prioritized and talked about as part of the budget. And if you want to do those other things, which one of them are you going to do? And I think that's the part that I was getting at when I said, we need a business plan, which I think is what Liam was covering from each of the departments as to what they're going to do. And then somehow there has to be another one that says, okay, all these strategic planning things are extra, or staff's only got 2 hours a day, not 50 hours a day to deal with these things. So prioritize them and which ones are going to get done and which ones aren't.
Okay. Joyce, I think you were up next, and then Sheila.
I just want to say I rely on Liam and Sheila to control council and their wishes. I mean, quite honestly, and we as finance committee will do our best to support you on that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you.
Just wanted to say that this year we are having more of a collaborative approach with the department heads and having setting priorities and having those difficult discussions regarding resources and how any projects align with council's strategic planning and how we're going to achieve it. So we are doing some internal priority setting this year. And also I believe in December, we'll be meeting with council also prior to any numbers for the budget being released.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay, we have a recommendation as it relates to the budget schedule, that the Finance Advisory Committee recommend that council approve the 2022 budget schedule as presented by the Chief Financial Officer at the October 18th, 21 FAC meeting. Mover, Joyce, seconder. Michael? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. Next point is, another one, permissive tax exemptions. 5.2, I believe we sort of addressed this in a series of emails. Overall, this probably formalizes that position as it relates to the committee's involvement. I don't know if there's a need for any discussion. I think, Allison, you'd raised one point about whether one item qualified, I believe.
Oh, it's all been sorted out and everything's fine. So I'm quite happy to move the motion. Whereas on September 24th, 2021, the Finance Advisory Committee voted by email on a recommendation to council regarding permissive tax exemptions. And whereas the recommendation was considered by council at its October 12th, 2021 meeting, therefore be it resolved that the FAC ratify the following resolution. That the Finance Advisory Committee recommend that council approve the Bowen Island Municipality 2020 to 2023 permissive tax exemption bylaw number 493, 2019 amendment bylaw number 553, 2021 as presented by the Chief Financial Officer.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Move,
Joyce said
second. Joyce, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. That matter's addressed. Thank you. 5.3, any other business?
Council passed the permissive tax exemption policy as presented.
Thank you. Anything under other business, 5.3? We'll address next meeting, I think, when we get down to that particular point. Information items identified. There's excerpts from the under 6.1 and 6.2. And also included in your package was a copy of the schedule, which I think we're a bit off on it relates, but we did make some progress today, which I appreciate. Any comments under information items or thoughts? No, seeing none. We'll look at the next 0.7 next meeting. As I mentioned earlier, obviously, budget discussions will not occur at the November meeting. Sometime probably in January, it will have to be scheduled. Rather than lose that date, I'm just wondering if we wish to hold at least a shorter meeting. And the two areas that I was thinking of addressing, one is the terms of reference for the committee generally, get that one put to bed, so to speak. And I think, Sheila, you mentioned that you could provide some updated information in regards to the status of the various reserves.
Yes, that's correct.
At that time. And it may also give us a discussion or a further discussion opportunity to talk about the matter of reserves generally for future periods, at least to initiate that discussion. Allison, you brought that forward on a number of times, and at least we may not come to a resolution, but certainly an opportunity for discussion. And we had another one to do. I'm just lost it.
Quarter results.
Quarterly results. Thank you. And that would be the third item. That would be the to be included in that meeting. And that would, again, not be a 3-hour meeting, I don't think. But I think that that would be an opportune time to have those level discussions when the other points are not pressing on us, particularly with the budget, because that tends to, when that happens, that's really our primary focus. So I would recommend that we hold that meeting with those 3 items specifically identified as our primary agenda items. And if management decides there's other things to bring forward, that would be an opportune time as well. Any comments or thoughts about that?
Fine with me.
Everybody okay?
Yes.
I think we're getting agreement on that point. So let's proceed if we can, Steph, on that and record it that way. I haven't left it. We don't have an in-camera today, but is there any additional discussion that the committee wishes to have or members of the committee would like to provide for? Seeing none. Point 8 is our adjournment. If I could have somebody move adjournment, please. Thank you, John. Seconded. Thank you. I believe we are therefore.
Joyce.
Yeah, we're therefore adjourned. I believe. Hey, look at that, 4:15 precisely.
Well done.
It's never happened
Really
before.
good.
Yeah.
Like ever. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for your discussion today, and again, welcome, Sheila. And look forward to
Thank
working
you.
with you. And Liam, I thank you for your reporting as well.
Thank
If
you all.
anybody's looking for the asset management plan, it was back in a meeting at the very beginning of 2020
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's
Anyway,
correct.
onto the agenda.
anyway, I think we're good. So again, thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you. Bye.
evening.